Chapter 6, Hand to Hand. Jack and Annie climbed onto the rock ledge and stepped into the cave. The air inside was cleaner and cooler than the air outside. "I can't see anything," said Jack. He patted the head of the baby kangaroo. "Me neither," said Annie. "Arf, arf!" "I guess we'll have to follow Teddy's bark," said Annie. "Let's hold hands." She held out her free hand to Jack. Jack took it. He put his other hand out and touched the wall. The joey moved in his pack. Jack and Annie walked into the darkness. "Arf!" Teddy kept barking, leading them on. "Arf, arf, arf, arf!" Suddenly, Jack felt something thump against his leg. He stopped and gasped. "What is it?" said Annie. "Arf!" It was Teddy. His tail was wagging and hitting Jack's leg. "What is it, boy?" Jack asked him. Teddy let out a howl. As he howled, an amazing thing happened. A white line began to glow in the air. The glowing line grew until it looked like a giant snake. Then glowing handprints appeared below the snake. Jack felt Annie squeeze his hand. "I think it's painted on the wall," she said. "But what is it?" whispered Jack. "I don't know," said Annie. She let go of Jack and put her hand inside one of the painted handprints. Jack did the same. Despite the glowing painting, the rock felt smooth and cool. It almost seemed to breathe. A ghost-like whistling came through the darkness, then a loud boom. "What's that?" Jack quickly took his hand off the wall. The boom came again. Boom! It sounded like thunder, said Annie. "Arf, arf!" "Teddy's leaving," said Annie. She grabbed Jack's hand. They turned back the way they had come and followed Teddy's barking again. "Arf!" They followed the little dog until they saw a flash of light. "Lightning," said Annie. "Lightning and thunder. We're at the front of the cave. Yay!" Annie pulled Jack toward the mouth of the cave and out into a pouring rain. Chapter 7. Rain, rain, rain. Rain fell on Jack's head and on Joey's head. Rain fell on Annie's head and on Teddy's head and on the koala's head. Annie opened her mouth and drank the rainwater. Jack did the same. The water tasted better than any water he'd ever drunk. When Jack looked back at the woods, a misty steam was rising from the charred ground and burning ashes. The heavy rain was putting out the wildfire. "You'll be safe now," Annie said to the koala. "I'll put you back in a nice gum tree. Then you can finish your nap." "I see a tree that's not burned," said Jack. They walked over to the unburned gum tree. Annie placed the koala in the fork of the two branches. "Go back to sleep now," she said softly. "Pretend the fire was all a dream." "Good night," said Jack. The koala seemed to smile at them. Then he closed his eyes and went to sleep, as if he'd never been disturbed at all. Jack sighed and looked around. "Man," he said, "we were lucky that a storm came." Annie smiled. "It wasn't just luck," she said. "It was magic." "Magic?" said Jack. "Yeah, the glowing hands and the snake," said Annie. "Somehow they brought the storm." "That doesn't make sense," said Jack. Joey stirred in his pack. Suddenly, Jack remembered something. "Hey, we have to get Joey back to the place where his mom left him," he said, "or she won't be able to find him." "Where was that place?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. He looked around at the rainy gray forest. Everything looked the same. "Teddy can find the spot," said Annie. Without even a bark, the little dog took off across the wet, muddy ground. Once again, Jack and Annie followed him. Jack's back was beginning to hurt from carrying Joey. "Arf, arf!" Jack and Annie caught up with Teddy. He stirred over the Australia book. It was wet, not burned. "Hooray, we found it," said Annie. "That's right," said Jack. "I left our book in the spot where we found Joey." "Once again, Teddy helped us out," said Annie. She patted the little dog's head. "Thanks, Teddy," Jack said. He picked up the Australia book. The cover was wet, but the pages looked okay. The little kangaroo peeked out of his pack as Jack tucked the book under his arm. "Don't worry, Joey," Annie said. "We'll stay right here till your mom comes back for you." If she hasn't come already, Jack thought worriedly. Jack and Annie stood in the rain with Teddy and Joey and waited. They waited and waited. The rain turned to a drizzle. Then the drizzle turned to a light sprinkle. Still they waited. Jack grew sadder and sadder. Maybe the mother kangaroo had come and left, or maybe she'd been caught by the dingoes, or maybe she'd been killed by the wildfire. Jack was afraid to look at Annie, afraid to say anything. I know what you're thinking, she said, finally. Jack patted Joey's head and sighed. Let's wait a little longer, he said. If she doesn't come back soon, we'll take him home with... Arf! Teddy barked softly. Listen, said Annie. Jack listened. The sound was very faint at first, but then it grew louder. It was a loud, squishy sound. It was a squashy sound. It was the sound of big feet slapping through the mud. Tune in next time for Chapter 8.